What's going on, world? Welcome to the 1,000 Mile Podcast. They say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So on this podcast, we talk about the single steps that business owners, entrepreneurs, and creatives have taken in their journey so that hopefully you will be inspired to start taking those steps in your journey. Now, the person that I am interviewing today is a good friend of mine, known him for years. His name is Connor Smith. He is the owner and operator of a studio in Orlando called Studio 18, where the motto is community is king. And I don't think I did a good enough job introducing you. So why don't you take a second and introduce yourself to the people?
That was pretty good, man. You got a good radio voice. It's awesome. I'm Connor Smith, like you said. I've been here in Orlando for about 10 years. We're sitting in the tracking room of Studio A at Studio 18. We've been in this facility for 6 years. Studio 18 has been around for almost 10. And it was just a college project at first. I was going to go start a studio back in Brooklyn. And it turned into an Orlando project. I fell in love with the city. And right off the bat, our motto became community is king, which is, there's some great stories as to how that developed. But, long story short, it's all about Orlando. You walk through this place, it's like an art museum. There's so much great music that's been done here. International artists have come in, but my favorite is the independent artists of Central Florida to work with.
Well, that's amazing, and this studio is amazing. I'll make sure to get some B-roll, show off the studio a little bit on the video version of the podcast. But you say you've been here for 10 years, and as you said, this is not the first facility that you were in. So this is like a 2-story facility, studios A, B, and C, plus a tracking room,
and Narnia.
Which is what I was just about to mention. And Narnia is kind of like a live room, rehearsal room.
Whatever flavor of the month. I mean, right now it's a green screen room, but also we do podcasts out of there as well. So we rent that space out to LV with Indie Jams. She has 15 different shows going on in there.
15
different shows, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's another thing that I did not know was going on here. I'm glad we got this chance to catch up, man. It's been quite a while. But what was the first studio like, and what prompted the move from that studio to this facility, and how long did that take? Like you said, you were over there for 4 years. What happened in those 4 years, and then what got you to move to this location?
Yeah, I mean, it originally started in a complex right down the street from Full Sail, where I was going to school, Caliber Bend, and I was a little bit more advanced than some of the other students. I grew up, I was mentored in New York City, in some great studios, Sterling Sound, great mastering facility, and when I was down here, everyone was like, "Hey, man, can you help me with my project? Can you help me with this?" And I knew I was going to start a studio in 2 years from then. And I said, "Well, let me just start charging now." And before you know it, you know how the apartment complex thing goes. It's like you can't run a studio out of there for too long before people start knocking on the door. So we found this place. A friend of mine said, "Connor, I got this house. I want to move in. Why don't you put the studio in here?" I said, "Wow, man, you want to do this together?" He's like, "Yeah." I walked by the house, and it's an ugly house, but it's beautiful to me, right?
Right. You saw the potential.
Vision. It reminded me of Hitsville, USA, in Motown, which was, they did all their recording out of a house. And we walked in, and I start, boom, I walk in with the tape measure. I'm like, oh, the dimensions are great. Oh, I love the hardwood floor, but it's also raised off the ground by like 3 feet. It has a resonancy that's special, like drums sound interesting in here. This will be the tracking room. This will be the control room. And then my friend stops me. He goes, no. He goes, he's like, "Connor, that's my bedroom, man. Like, I found this place. Like, I'm going to take that room." And I'm like, dude, that has to be the control room or I'm not moving in. And as fate would have it, we flipped a coin.
Oh, man.
He said, if it lands on heads, Connor, you get it as a control room. I'll take that room as my bedroom. If it's tails, then I get the room. So we flipped the coin over the phone. No FaceTime at the time. And I had to trust him. And he goes, "Connor, you got heads." If I didn't,
that's a good friend.
It's a very good friend because I may not have started the studio. It's amazing. So, the second I got that, I went straight to Home Depot, start cutting some wood and doing things to a place you're renting that you probably shouldn't. But it was a 100-year-old house. It was really cool, and you remember it, right?
Oh yeah.
We had the attic, which was like where the office was. You'd like literally pull the stairs down, and you go into the attic. We had the tracking room, we had a control room, and then my bedroom was literally a closet. It was
I didn't even realize that your bedroom was right next to the control for years. I did not know.
It was until like a Scooby-Doo, like sliding
I think I was in there mixing a track for you one day, and like the wall slid back and you came out, and I'm like, what?
What's in there? Like, just storage. So like we use every square inch of that building,
Yeah.
to the max, to just maximize every inch. And that's why I lived in a closet for a couple of years because it was all about the music.
Yeah, and those are the sacrifices that you got to make when you have that passion.
Absolutely.
So you were in there, you were having a great run because I know people were over there all the time.
Of course.
But why'd you have to leave there? Was the location not good? Was there problems with the house? What was going on?
It was a combination of a couple things. One, for me, I said, okay, I think it's time for me to move back up to New York. Like, I'm ready for that move. I was able to be a little bit of a bigger fish in a smaller pond. I tested with that theory here, and I said, now I think I'm ready for New York. The lease was getting ready to be up. The house was going to be sold. I actually tried to buy the house from the guy and kind of got ripped off, and the deal didn't go as planned. So I said, well, I guess this might just kind of be the end. So we did a going away party for the city. And it kind of, during that time, we shot a documentary that was like a tribute to the Orlando music scene.
Wow.
And, I pulled the permit for the party and everything. And we had, a band that you're familiar with at the time that was active, Family Gang.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. You
had Palmer Reed, who's out in L.A. doing amazing things. You had...
he moved?
Oh, yeah. He's been out there. He's crushing
I knew he was doing, he was backup singing for some art. I thought he was still here.
No, he's out there. He's doing big things with a lot of people who I've worked with and friends and mentored. But so Palmer was in the band, Dizzle Funk, Fredo Peens, Jester, the whole crew, right?
Yeah.
So they're playing a set outside. Now it's about to be 10 o'clock. There's allegedly like a SWAT team around the corner ready to close this thing down because we had a few hundred people.
Okay.
And on that band on Fairbanks, it was causing some commotion.
Yeah.
And the cops came by earlier, right? And the cop goes, "What the heck's going on here, dude?" And I was like, "Look, we got a permit, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's studio. Let me show you inside." He goes, "Oh, my son's actually a recording artist." I'm like, "Great. This will work out just fine." So, I become friends with him. He goes, "Look, man, just by 10 o'clock, promise me it'll be shut down." So they're shooting the documentary. Family Gang at 9:58 is playing, Rage Against the Machine covers. I think they're playing
Jesus.
Testify, which is kind of an epic song when cops pull up. And
do you have video of that?
Perspective. And there's documentation, there's video. And someone comes up to me and goes, "Connor, the cops are around the corner, dude, like 10 o'clock. Like, what do you want to do? They look like they're ready to bust some things down." And I said something stupid because the cameras were on, and I was just like, "I don't press stop. I just press record." And I walked away, and they're like, "Oh, no." So the cops come up, and actually I have this vivid memory of, like, everyone kind of stopping. Like, like the slow, like, trombone fade out? Like, as someone's in the middle of a set, and then it, like, slowly, and then, like, you look around, and everyone was just frozen, except Fredo. Fredo Peen still had the megaphone.
Oh, no.
And he's like, "Ah, ah," and he's like, "Where's my band?" And he turns around, and there's, like, an officer right there, and he goes... And so nobody moves, right? There's like 300 people. No one moves. It wasn't one of those like cop breakup things where everyone runs. It's just like everyone's like, "What's going on?" And the cop's like, "So who's responsible?" And I was like, "Sir, that's me. This is my place." Before I can finish my sentence, boom, I'm in handcuffs, right?
Damn.
So I'm cuffed and I'm facing the crowd. And he like leans in and he's like, "Okay, wise guy." He's like, "You got anything for the crowd now?" I was like, "Actually, since you're giving me the opportunity, I think now would be a great time." So I gave my kind of like a Braveheart speech to Orlando. I was just like, "Hey guys, look, it's been an awesome 4 years. Thank you for everything. We made some great music. I did it for you. Community is king forever." And everyone's going crazy. People are chanting Studio 18. And I had like 100 people come down to bail me out of jail.
Wow.
Yeah. So they bailed me out. And that was like very profound to me, and I was like, maybe this community cares about me and Studio 18, and I care about it. Maybe I should stick around here for a little longer. So I said, let's give it a shot. Let me stick in Orlando for some more time. And we looked into a bunch of commercial facilities because we're like, okay, it's time to upgrade. Like, let's go commercial. And I probably looked in 600 facilities. I mean, throughout Orlando for about a year's time, every little open venue downtown, everywhere. And someone reminded me. They said, "Connor, what makes Studio 18 so cool is that it's in a house. That's what makes it special. That's what made it special. You fostered this home environment, and that's where people made such great art."
Right.
I said, "You're right." So we looked for a place that was that, and we found this location. It's 2 buildings. It's a house and another house, and we converted them top to bottom. We rezoned, and just like the old spot, we knocked down walls and made every square inch a studio, except just like times 5 of the last one.
That's that's amazing,
That's the
man.
story in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, so you've been doing this for 10 years, and 10 years is a long time to do anything.
Sure.
What would you say is, I mean, I know community is king is the motto, and that's been like your modus operandi forever.
Absolutely.
What would you say, other than learning that principle? I mean, 100 people coming to bail you out, that's powerful.
Right.
What has been like the biggest lesson that you've taken away from this last 10 years?
The biggest lesson. Well, I'm constantly learning about leadership. I mean, I think to run a place like this, you have to inspire people. First off, I'm so fortunate that this place turned out in such a way that it inspires people in and of itself when you walk through the building, right? I have people that email me every single day, at least 3 emails a day. I want to intern. I want to work there. I want to work there. You know, so throughout the year, it's 1,000 people, and it's because the place inspires them so much. But once they're in the building, you've got to keep motivating them, and that takes work. It takes discipline. It takes building a system where all of a sudden you're leading so many people that, you know, sometimes for me, you know, you lose touch with yourself. You know, you've got a mission that's so about the community. You've got a team to run. It's business 24/7. You know, as an entrepreneur, right. the lights don't turn off. The phone doesn't stop ringing. So it's like, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned and am still learning is just how to balance all of that. Because if you don't, when you lose touch with yourself, your leadership's not A1.
Right.
You know? And I think people respect a hard worker, but they respect like a person whose lifestyle that they admire as well. And I think after a while, when they see someone who just works nonstop, at first it's inspiring, but then it's like, man, like, is that what this person expects of me?
Right.
Like, you know, so it's trying to relate with people on a human level, and also just relate with yourself. So I've lost touch with myself many times throughout this journey of being an entrepreneur, and other entrepreneurs, you know, yourself included, can probably relate to those moments. It's just so stressful.
Dude, it's like your brain never stops working. You know, you feel guilty if you're not doing something.
You feel guilty. There's this constant sense of guilt and responsibility to just keep moving and keep doing this, and sometimes it's just not healthy at the end of the day.
Oh, it's definitely not healthy. You know? I can testify to that. Like the weight's been up and down, the stress has been off the charts. Like it's and that's one thing that I personally am this year. I have to find a way to deal with is that.
So you're a hard worker. I've known that about you my whole life.
Yeah, that constant stress, the wanting to succeed so bad, not for yourself but for other people.
Right.
You know, because like you're married, I have a family, I got 2 kids, and like that's always in the back of my head, like every single day. Yeah.
How do you provide for them? Am I being a good father? Am I being a good husband? You know, all this while. Am I staying true to my dreams, you know, as well?
Right, because it's like I put them first a lot of times. And I mean, to me, you're supposed to, because that's what my parents did. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you know, I used to be a musician. Yeah. I guess it never really goes away. Like I still got a recording studio set up in my house.
Right.
It's more turned into a video editing suite these days because I haven't done a song in 2 years. Although I still mostly listen to the last batch of songs that I made. And it's like, you want to provide for them, you want to make all their dreams possible, but at the same time you're sitting there like, how do I make sure that I don't give up on my dreams?
Right. And the last thing you want to do is like start to, you know, accidentally resent other people for feeling like they got in the way of your dreams when that's not the case, you know?
Right.
It's really no one else's fault but our own. And we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves either, you know? Life's a journey. Things change. But you never want to forget about yourself either. And that's just, I think that's the biggest thing I've learned over these years is like to be a good leader and a good person, you've got to care about yourself too. And it's something I'm still working on doing because
I don't think the work ever stops,
children,
man.
You know? Yeah, no, it doesn't.
And like I said, 10 years is a long time to be putting work into anything. I guess the place I want to go next is a lot of people, who even know you, who even know about the studio, know some of the history, they probably think that all you do is open up the door and let people come in and record songs.
Right.
I know that it is so much more than that. Can you just break down some of the things that you have to do to keep these lights on, to keep these doors open?
Yeah.
Some of the other streams of revenue that you've had to generate over the years to keep this stream alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got bills to pay, we've got a staff to pay. I think it's another thing I've learned too is that hiring and training in this industry, in the entertainment industry as a whole, I mean, it's more complex than, say, a pizza shop.
Right.
Where, this college kid quit and it's like, okay, just find someone else to run the register. Or like, we've got the oven, we've got the ingredients, we can teach someone how to make a pizza in a few days, for the most part. Here it's like, oh my gosh, this person is our engineer. They've built a rapport with the staff. Or not just with the staff, with the city. There's a sound. They know the room in and out. They help design some of the gear upgrades we got based around their style of mixing. So you're constantly, you're constantly working with your staff to make sure that they're happy, and that takes a lot of time. But also, you're working with the community. I mean, as beautiful of a place as this is, there's other competition out there. There's other studios, and you need to differentiate. And I think another lesson that I learned in a business is it's really good practice and habit to speak highly of your competitors. And I know that's a little bit of there's counter perspectives to that other business owners will say bury them. My approach, especially being that I'm a community first guy, is to big up your competitors, and I think it speaks well about you. So it doesn't make business easy at first, but it does in the long run. So people come through this door and say, hey, I was at another studio and, I didn't really have a good experience. Those guys over there, boom, boom. And I think, some of my new staff, their instinct would be something like, yeah, like we're better than those. Yeah, of course those guys. Yeah, and I'm like, my first instinct is like, wow, like I know the owner of that studio. I know those engineers. They're really incredible. That's a phenomenal facility. Sorry you had that experience. I don't want you to have that impression like they're good. That said, we do something a little different. Give us a try, see what you like. And you know what? I'm not so naive to think that the world is perfect for me, that someone hasn't ever walked out of the studio and walked into another studio with a similar sentiment. I mean,
right.
Sometimes it's inevitable. You can't avoid it.
You can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody.
Even if you give excellent customer service, even if you do nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There are some people that are just, their whole mission is to find something to complain about.
Yeah.
And I've learned that in the industries that I've been in. And like, it doesn't matter. You can be the most talented person, the best customer service, do everything right, dot every I, cross every T, and somebody will find something wrong with what you did.
And learning how to navigate that is tricky. But I think at the end of the day, if you have a good reputation, it's like, that if that person walks away speaking poorly of you, you go, I have a good enough reputation that it will outweigh what that person's saying. And so to your question, right? It's constantly working on not just the relationships I have with my customers, but also with my staff and with my competitors. So it's like it's this constant. It's communication. I think a lot of people invent their own ideas of what's going on in places that they can't see. Just like, the neighbor down the street who doesn't know what's going on at the house has their theories of, those kids down there are selling drugs and, God knows what they're thinking,
Right.
And it's like when you open up these conversations and have some transparency to like what you're doing to everyone, including your competitors, including your neighbors, your competition, et cetera, then there's nothing that anyone can make up about you anymore. We're transparent. This is what we do.
And also you have a better chance of influencing the market.
Definitely. And I believe that a market like Orlando, which has an incredible music scene, but lacking in the department of a music industry, compared to say in Atlanta, Nashville, New York, LA.
I just think I think people here just haven't. I think they get so concentrated, so invested in the artistry that they just forget about the business, or they think, oh, I'll get a manager and the manager will handle the business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. And but also on the same token, like, it's funny. Like the other days, you always hear people say, "Oh, people in this state can't drive," or "People over there, can't do this," or et cetera. "Oh, people out there are rude." It's like, look, there's nothing in the water that makes us different from one state to the next. I think we're all humans are innately like the same. So
Right.
it's the circumstances that we're put in. So then when I say that, when people come out, "Oh, people in Orlando don't support this and that," it's like, yo, we're good people just like wherever else. So what is the reason that maybe there is a lack of some of these things?
Right.
And I try to reverse engineer that and not necessarily you blame it on the people, but some of the circumstances, for example, or just the way the cars have been turned. Orlando is so spread out. That's one thing. It's sometimes hard to some of these other metropolitan areas or cities around the world have a different infrastructure that literally makes it just like easier to congregate.
Right.
Orlando's very far apart, so it's hard to build a community in
Yeah.
that regard.
Because
Also,
you got people in Kissimmee,
you got
Winter
people in
Park,
Kissimmee, sure.
like all the way out to.
It's extremely spread out. So it's
yeah.
like how do you unite these people? It's definitely a challenge. But the other thing too is like the record labels and the publishing houses and the marketing agencies who specifically like work with music aren't as prevalent here in Orlando.
Right.
So people get mad like someone leaves Orlando to go to LA and they're like, "Oh, you're leaving us behind." It's like, bro, it's like I
There's
understand.
nothing here. Like I've done everything I can.
I understand exactly. So one of my goals is to bring some of that infrastructure to the city. I think it will really help. I don't think it's a mindset of the people needing to unite in a certain way. I think that's there. I feel that in this city. I think the music's great. I think the flavor is really good. I think we just need more resources for these people.
Oh, definitely. I agree on the resources part. I mean, other than recording studios, in Full Sail, there's not a lot of music industry specific
Exactly.
things in this city. And it's like you said, like the people who do, like the majority of them who do gain those footholds and develop those systems and advantages and relationships, they end up having to leave just to keep the ball rolling.
And I understand. I mean, if they're offered, like, they're over here struggling to pay their bills, but making great art, and then someone offers them a deal that's going to give them a tour around the world and relocate them, I support that cause.
Right.
So
I mean, that's your life.
That's
you gotta,
your life.
You gotta handle
that's
that.
It's your dream. Go do it. So I'm hoping to see, some more industry resources brought to the city. The cool thing is the day and age that we live in with music, and I know you know this, but this is for, the audience listening too. You can do so much online and you can do so much independently.
So much.
You don't necessarily need these companies to invest in you nowadays. You can become look at Lil Nas X. He could have done that from any state in the country. He could have done that from any place in the world.
Because he got big off of TikTok, right?
He got big off of TikTok. I mean, there's literally the tools he had from his phone. You know what I mean? And used his own creativity from his tools his generation was using.
Right.
And probably the record labels wouldn't have even thought to do that. And here he is, massive. And that's just an example. That could be done in Orlando. That could be done in Idaho. It doesn't matter where. So the resources are there. So what is providing the resources to the community? It's educating the community because they all have the resources right on their phone. So it's really it's infusing that infrastructure, that education to the community, and that's one of my goals over the next couple of years here in Orlando with that.
And speaking of education, I know that you in particular have done things to try to educate artists on just like what's possible, opportunities, things like that. And you've had different projects where you tried to bring people in to develop some of these things, some of these, industry type of infrastructures that you were talking about. Because I remember back in the day, you were starting a production service, or you were starting a songwriting service. So what happened with that?
Well, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Like, I think innovation is what really keeps me ticking. Creation is important, but for me, innovation really gets me going. So, to those people out there that are thinking about starting a studio, and this will come full circle to your point and your question, but it's not a scalable business, right? It's a brick and mortar. We've got a couple studio rooms. You can only rent them out so many hours a day. When I was younger and started this whole thing, I didn't understand these business principles, and good thing, because I maybe never would have created the studio, and I'm glad
Right.
I'm glad I was ignorant to these concepts, because I'm so glad I did start the studio. It's opened up so many other doors. But after running a studio and a business like this for a while, you go, I'm only affecting so many lives, and I say only relatively speaking to how many people are in the world, because we've affected a lot here. But it's like, how can you do it on a grander scale? And you start to realize, like, it's not just more sessions. It's what can we offer that 1,000 people can take advantage of in one day's time. So you start to innovate. You start to think about the resources we have. So over the years, I've created some other businesses, some which have done better than others. You know, the life of an entrepreneur.
Right.
They don't always succeed. And
Right.
If
I mean,
you have
even
a perfect
good
track record, that's
even good
unheard of.
entrepreneurs have failures.
Of
And I
course.
think that's one reason why I decided to do this podcast, is to talk about those types of things, because I think people get this impression, especially when they see the guys who have won big
Right.
on the news, on social media, on Instagram, wherever there's a screen.
Right.
When they see those people, I mean, even in the newspaper, when they see those people, I think they get the impression that those guys never failed, or that they never had a business that lost money, because they finally found their formula that's getting them the money,
Yeah.
or having that success, or having the reach, or having the impact that other people wish that they could have.
Right.
And so I think it's important to have those conversations where we're real with people, and especially just because, like, this facility is incredible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's in a house, but what you are capable of here, the level of gear that is here, the level of talent that is here, is something that you would see in a full commercial facility.
Yeah.
But I mean, it has that home studio feel, which
For
is
sure.
really cool, because so many artists these days are home studio artists, and where, you know, sterling sound might intimidate somebody, or
Right.
make them turn around and run away, they may be able to, you know, get it together to come in here and
Yeah.
put something down. So even though this is incredible, this is high level operation, I think it's like, someone like you is so down to earth. I think it's just important to have conversations with people like you, so people can see, like, where you came from, and the fact that you did build something like this, that you were in a 100-year-old house at first,
Yeah.
and about to shut it down and move out of town, and then you decided to keep going.
Yeah, and you know, there's constant failures nonstop. You know, it's interesting. You listen to a lot of successful people speak about entrepreneurship and the journey, and they mention failure a lot. One thing that I don't see mentioned as much is that they're still failing on a micro level constantly. Like,
Right.
it's part of the process, right? Growth, it requires failure. Like, that at every level. I mean, if you look at an athlete, it requires trying a new move and failing so many times. Getting on a bike and falling down is part of learning. It's not like once you, then the best BMX bikers in the world now don't fall. No, they try
Right.
they keep pushing, just
Right.
like they fell the first time they got on the training wheels. So, like, it just, when you get in the gym, you push yourself till failure. And I think that it's embracing this concept of failing and knowing it's part of the journey. And failing does not make you a failure. It's part of the process.
Right. The only
And,
thing that makes
yeah.
you a failure is quitting.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you could fail, but then try again.
Or quit, or you should maybe quitting before you've reached your goal, right? And I think that's another thing that I'm learning how to do, is learning how to quit, for lack of a better term. First off, it does take wisdom to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
Right.
Right. So there are times where it's like, it's wise to maybe quit. You know, it's wise
Right.
to say, you know what, that didn't work, and that's okay. For my own pride, I don't need to keep doing it. I have so much other ideas and talent, and it's worth exploring a new avenue. And I think that's okay. It's quitting when you're facing defeat. This is when it's like, to speak to your kind of point of quitting, that's not in the true spirit of success, is when you've got your blinders on and you've got no other exit or option, and you just
Right.
you just pull the plug. But I think there's times when it's wise to say, you know what, I should pivot, and that's a popular
Definitely.
term that we
Definitely.
use, right?
Like some people think that when a business closes, the only reason is because the business didn't work.
Right.
Or sometimes when somebody stops with a business, or closes a business, or sells a business, it's because they just don't see any more path for innovation or any more path for growth or any more opportunity to do more good than they've already done.
Or it's doing decently, but they realize their resources put into that can actually go to something that's now a better idea.
That too.
So it's like, hey, this was a great run. Glad it happened. I'm going to close that down, take everything I learned from that experience, take the money that I've been putting in that and put it towards this, which is going to have a higher return.
Exactly.
So, and I mean, great business owners are constantly closing businesses down, Now the other thing is it's figuring out how to have an exit is tricky. I think it's something I never thought about. It's something you typically don't think about, especially when you're young and you're starting something. Cool. How is this going to end? Like, how do I pass it on? What happens next? How do I pull out of it?
Right.
I think great seasoned entrepreneurs start companies with the plan of an exit. I'm building this concept. I'm going to build it up. I'm going to sell it. I may have a sunset clause as I kind of mentor and facilitate the organization for 2 years, and I'm out. And that's part of the plan. Not everyone wants to start a Facebook and Uber, excuse me, and last with it forever. Some people do, but so it's learning how to do that.
Well, And that's a great point, but I also think one thing that's happening in business, and like this is something I hear Gary Vee talking about, is that there's sometimes, I think right now, especially the culture that's developed in like business on a larger scale than me and you are talking about right now, is that people are starting businesses just to sell them. Like not to make a successful business, but to get a bunch of money in the door from investors and then turn around, see somebody and be like, I got the bag, bye.
Right.
Like, and I
mean, I don't have the answer to this or anything, but just you and I just speaking out loud, and you just tell me your take on it, because I don't think I've come to a consensus. Is there anything wrong with that?
I think that there's something wrong with it when you are setting up the company you are trying to sell just to be sold, but not to actually being a lasting entity that can keep working.
Like if secretly that once you sell it, it might collapse.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
That's janky. That's janky. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing. They're building these houses, they're building a house of cards, making it look really good, getting the investor money and being like, all right, I got to get this. Like, as soon as they see the dotted line get signed, and they're like, yes, let me get out the door before 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know what? I think to speak to that, so here's where it's the right way. For me, I like starting ideas and passing them on to people who are better at operating, right? Like operation is not necessarily my strength. Innovation, leadership, and motivation.
There's people whose entire career is startups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good at getting the ball rolling and coming up with a concept, and then you get it to a certain scale, and it's like there's CEOs of companies that can operate a company way better than I could, just from their experience, from their personality, their strengths. I often get distracted, probably because
you got so many ideas.
Guy, it's. Maybe I have ADD and it's a gift and a curse, probably more a gift, but it's not that I get bored of things as much as I can't help but to constantly innovate. And sometimes it's like, dude, the wheel is turning. Like we do not need to adjust it right now. Let's just let it roll for a little bit. And I'm not good at that,
Right.
And I think it's that's a big part of being an entrepreneur and a business person and a leader is recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, My weaknesses are probably in operation, and I can distract the team from the goals sometimes, from creating new ones constantly. But I can definitely convince a lot of people to do things, and I think I feel there's a responsibility with that ability and that power to do something like that, to do good, because it's dangerous when you can do bad. If with bad intentions. So I know that being that I have the ability to be very convincing, I want to harness that for convincing people to do good stuff.
Right.
So I noticed that's my strength. That's my specialty in life, more so than just music and studios and businesses. It's like, it's conviction. And then from there, get me out of there, because I might burn the house down by accident. Once it's rolling.
I feel you. Like for me right now, especially trying to grow my company, I Am Media, plug. Uh, my thing is systems. I'm in a serious phase of needing to develop good, repeatable systems,
Cool.
and I've never really had to do that before. I've done a little bit of it, like but more on a technician level than on a businessman level. I'm better about organizing my gear and how to get ready for a shoot, and showing up on time and doing the thing. Like I'm really good at doing the thing, but now it's like I really have to look at the business as a business, not just as me being a freelancer, but me trying to be like, I know I've come to grips with the fact that even just a little bit more on my plate than has been on there the past few months means I need more people. But then it's like, all right, well, how are you going to increase revenue so that you can afford more people,
Right.
Or that you can afford to hire freelancers?
Right. You can
And
get
then
an
it's
intern, but what's the training process? And then are they going
Right.
to leave in 3 months? And
right, and it's like, how do I even lead an intern? Like I've never done that before. Like,
Right.
and it's like, and then even though I know interning is a thing, and that I could be a valuable resource to somebody who's really just getting started, at the same time I'm like, but I'm not paying them.
Right.
And I'm like, because I've been a freelancer where the whole point is to get paid, I feel bad about that. But then I know that internship can be a very valuable thing, and that people who are really hungry and really want it and really want to learn, they're willing to put that time in. But like, that's just a personal thing where I'm just like, but I feel guilty if I can't pay to do
Right.
it.
So it's a combination of implementing systems and then discipline to run the systems, right? And running them efficiently. And we try to make things easier on ourselves constantly by, can I automate this? What if there's a sheet that handles that? Can I do this? And what I've come to learn is sometimes we spend so much time focused on building the system that we don't focus on just getting it done the old-fashioned, whatever it
Right.
takes, with a little elbow grease. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I guess an analogy I'd use is, picture the first time a snowboard like ever came out, right? And you're going down a mountain, and the guy just got a plank of wood, and he stood on it. He's like, "Yo, like I can snowboard." And then he like duct taped his feet to it. And he's like, "Now I'm kind of staying in." And then you got the scientist who's looking at the thing. He goes, "I can make that a really amazing snowboard." So he goes into the lab. He builds these bindings. He's building all this stuff. He spends like 2 years working on this perfect masterpiece snowboard. It's so much better than this other guy's plank of wood that he duct taped to his feet. But he goes out to the mountain, and now that guy's on the hill with this great thing, and he can't even go 3 feet because he never actually rode down a mountain. And this other dude is doing kickflips off a plank of wood. And it's kind of like, it's something that I need to remind myself, because I love systems, I love process, I love the concept of efficiency, of automation. But at the end of the day, you drive yourself crazy doing all that.
Right.
And you don't actually just try riding the plank of wood down the mountain, So, that's my advice to you, the viewers, and myself constantly, And so that's one thing I think about. The other thing is, I just saw a really awesome talk the other day at a podcast. It was a podcast event. There's one coming up called Podfest, and it's in Orlando. And
Word?
I'd love to put you in touch with these people.
Yeah,
Incredible
please.
Podcast experts. In fact, the guy who I have a meeting with here in 20 minutes is the one who initiated this entire meeting. Anyway, he brought a guy by. His name was Nate, with the company Nate just exited for millions and millions of dollars he created in college, called Free Up. This is a really interesting concept to entrepreneurs. It's essentially like it's a freelance program, right? But it's all outsourced using virtual assistants. So these people are overseas, which I'm sure is part of his business model. I don't find there's nothing ethically wrong with it. I mean, these people are getting the rates that they want and are extremely helpful.
Right.
And it's really cool what he does. Essentially, he trains businesses how to run a lot of their operations off of virtual assistants as opposed to hiring someone. And you can do it more affordably and more efficiently. And one of the things I took away from him that was really brilliant was, he said, in building businesses, when he brings on staff, instead of saying, I need someone that's going to work for me for 40 hours a week, that's going to be crushing, my handling, my accounting, my books, etc. He says he'd always rather have 2 people at 20 hours than 1 person at 40. And he said his reason for that was because people inevitably or typically don't last forever with inside a company. And hiring and retraining and getting back in the business, especially when you're not expecting it, is brutal. So when you have two people doing less work, when one person's sick or has to duck out, you got another person that can come and take on more hours as you go to find that other guy.
Okay.
So it's really just kind of an interesting business practice.
I can definitely see the logic in that. I can see the value in virtual assistants. I've been thinking about it myself. People who do like, freelance social media management, all those types of things, just handling the stuff that is like, maybe you really want to do it, but you know that it's just time consuming,
right,
and that there are people who are better at it than you, and your time could better be spent elsewhere.
Right.
And so that's what I've been coming to grips with. Like the very first thing that I need is a editor. I need a freelance editor who is available and will just like
check out Free Up. There might be some really good people out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually know a guy who a guy I talked to via one of the mastermind groups I'm in, and he says he's got an incredible editor, and I'm like, yo, let me get that number, bro. Like,
right? He's like, that's my editor. Yeah. No, I think. Well, first off, when it comes to this type of stuff, we talk about audio visual stuff and getting people to join the team. We see talented people in and out of Orlando all the time. They can hold a camera, that do a good job, but can they last and can they get you the project on time?
Right.
I think that's crucial, and that's one of the advices that I give to people trying to start studios and stuff is like, what will set you aside is just like meeting deadlines.
That's why I need an editor. So I can get that turnaround time crunched down.
Turnaround time is crucial in any industry, but my gosh, in this one, it's
hard when you're a creative, because especially when you're like a super artistic, like perfectionist creative, it's like you want to put your all into it, and sometimes it's like, I just got to make it good enough for the client,
right?
Like, because it's like, but I could have made a Scorsese film.
Yeah, exactly. I see stuff that comes back to me, even stuff that like an intern's working on from an audio standpoint. I'll walk in the room and I'll be like, dude, that mix sounds awesome. And I know if I really thought about it, if I was at that level of the mix when I'm mixing something, God knows I'd work on for so many more hours, because it's not perfect to me. But when you come in with a fresh perspective, things are usually better. The deeper you go, the more imperfections you start to see, and it drives us crazy, right? But it's like what they say over at Facebook, they have it written on the wall. Facebook or Google? Google Office, it says, done is better than perfect. Mm-hmm. And amen to that, because it's the truth.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that I've had to try to internalize and fight, because, oh my God, I'm so indecisive when it comes to like editing, mixing, anything creative.
I relate. I empathize. We're creatives, artists. I've painted my whole life. I'm a mix engineer. It's art,
Yeah.
It's a very meticulous craft that we're perfectionists about. But other people in other industries, same thing, right? Being a perfectionist is more of a curse than a gift.
I actually think being a perfectionist is a weakness.
I think so too.
Because it keeps you from getting shit done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And speaking of getting things done, what are some of the biggest accomplishments or milestones that you would say have happened over the last 10 years for Studio 18?
Biggest milestones. I mean, I'm very proud when people do great things that have worked here, or like clients that have gone on to do great things. So every time that someone that's lived in this building or worked alongside me goes on to do great things, I'm really proud, So just some things off the top of my head. I mean, Tyler Yalway's out and just got signed to Post Malone's record label.
Nice.
He lived and mentored and worked out of the studio. He's doing really big things. Some great engineers in town are doing awesome things. Ignacio and Michael Cupp are working on some big projects. Ignacio got signed to a record label.
Nice.
Circa, who used to work here, went on and created his own company, Entrepreneur, which is doing great things.
Yeah, I actually did a video for him.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's awesome. So like, I think just there's a lot of, that's what makes me the most proud. I mean, I've got the stories of when Daddy Yankees come through the building, or Earth, Wind & Fire stopped in, or we did a project with Tony Cook, James Brown's original drummer, in this room and redid like a whole disco album and
damn
things of that nature. Like, Joey Badass came in, but watching things like, I built a room downstairs for Ayo, the producer, while he, was still on the come up. Mind you, he had a couple credits under his belt, but now the dude's producing for Chris Brown, Rihanna did some records on the last Cardi B album. I mean, so he's crushing it. And like, just to see that part of their journey was out of here, I was just like, that's what makes me proud. And that's what makes me want to keep this studio going.
That's amazing. And we talked about leadership struggles and things that you're still learning. Where are the areas that you say you really want to see yourself improve in like the next year to 2 years? Like where is it that you personally think like I have to step this up?
So something that I've identified as something I really need to work on over the past few months, and I've been getting better at it, is just time management as a whole. You know, meetings that are an hour-long meeting can turn into 2-hour-long meetings, and it's like being kind of disciplined about those things, or how I manage my calendar. I'm a big spreadsheet guy, right? Like, because I'm a numbers guy, and I built this sheet that I'm working on right now that I'll probably like resell or get a programmer to redo. There's a lot of cool kind of complex algorithms. I call it the puncher, and what the puncher does is because I punch in things. I've noticed that when I do a to-do list, and I don't know if you can relate, but I'm sure a lot of people watching can, is you create a to-do list like, these are the things I need to get done today. You ever write stuff down? Like, I got to get this. And at the end of the night, you're like, damn, I got like half of that done. And this happens to me, or happened to me all the time. And I go to bed defeated, like, why am I not finishing all this stuff? And what I started to realize was I'm not being realistic with these goals. I'm not being specific enough either. Like, when I'll write out this, email this person back, run a recording session with this, meet with this person, do this, respond to that, write this letter to this, shoot this video. And what I started to realize is there's 24 hours in a day.
Right.
So I started putting times next to these things. How long do they take? And now with inside my puncher, I can move stuff around and go like, oh, I can only finish 17, 18 of those things today, not 27 or 5, whatever. And I can move them to other days. And what that's done is it's helped me stop doing stuff it's busy work, and be like, I just don't have time. I shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
I should either be delegating that, which is art in and of itself, or just not be doing it,
Right.
And then the other thing it does is it just keeps me disciplined to myself, right? When we're our own entrepreneur, we're our bosses, and that's a dangerous thing, because it's very easy to call out sick. It's very easy to make an excuse why you come to your own work late.
Right.
You're not reporting to anyone. So that becomes habitual, and you need to be disciplined with yourself. So time management is so crucial as an entrepreneur, and it's something that I've struggled with for years, and I'm trying to crack the code right now. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out my own system for that too. Like the thing that is helping me right now is and it's not always 100% effective, but it makes it better than when I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
Is just before I go to bed, I pull out this notepad or another one. I got like 3 or 4 notebooks floating around where the main purpose is sit down and try to write out my schedule for the next day, hour by hour, like start time, end time. I even put like if I'm going from my house to someplace else, I'm putting in how much time do I think it takes to drive.
Yeah, awesome.
Like,
so I'm gonna give you a copy of my puncher through Google Sheets. I'll make it open to the public. I'll do it for any of the viewers too, so they can have a copy of that. And they can give me feedback on what I need to reprogram to make it better for everyone. But I think it's a great time management tool. So anybody who's watching this right now, I'll make sure that we include that.
Awesome. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty much what you're doing, just on steroids with the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean,
I love your feedback on it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought that up, because just last night I was I know you're kind of getting on LinkedIn now. I don't know how many content creators or how many people you're following.
Finally, back on.
There's this dude, Richard Moore, who had just released a piece of content talking about time management. Or no, he did a live stream where he was talking about time management. He was taking questions from his audience, and that was like the big point he made. Is like, people always make lists of what they need to do or say, I'm going to do this, but they never put an end time. They never give themselves a time limit. And he's like, he was telling the person who asked the question, like, start giving yourself time limits. Like, put when the task starts and when it stops.
Why did we write so many papers in high school? They had due dates.
Right. You know? He was like, give yourself a start time, give yourself an end time, and like watch. He's like, he's like, I get the amount of work in a day done that 3 people do because I give myself hard limits.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still, and on top of all that, you still have to be disciplined, because even with my puncher, there's no one that comes out and punches you when you didn't do your task. You know what I'm saying? No one walks in and is like, why are you behind schedule? You know, it's really just the angel and devil on your shoulder. And you've got to, it's all habitual. It's all practice, right?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest things about working for yourself, and like legit working for yourself, not just being, I mean, even when you're a freelancer, it's still tough, but especially when you're actually running a business, even as a solopreneur, is the fact that you have to come up with everything. Like, you have to figure out what needs to be done. You have to make the marching orders. You have to like figure out the strategy, or, you know, figure out that you need to hire somebody to figure out the strategy. And so like having to do that on a daily basis is a lot of pressure. And people don't, I think people who have a job and they hate their job, but then maybe they don't realize that entrepreneurship is not for them, because also I'm hoping that you know, hearing these stories and the struggles, well, also people who just think entrepreneurship is cool. And I mean, by all means, anybody who's listening, if you want to try having your own business, go ahead, give it a try. Like, like maybe you'll find out that you're the next Bill Gates. But this whole
sentiment of like being your own boss and not having to work for anyone, it's dangerous. I'm not too happy that this picture is being painted of like shunning people from working for other people. Like, that's okay. That's our world wouldn't work if everybody was their own boss. It's not a system that really breeds innovation or progress, or what am I saying? Just things getting done. You need teams. You need people. Not every business does, but many businesses do. And there's nothing wrong with, you can still be innovative, creative, contributing, amazing person to society and not be your own boss. That's also okay.
And on that note, I think that's a good time to bring this to an end. So I want to say thank you to Connor. Thank you to the Studio 18 team who helped me get my gear all up to the second floor.
Yeah, man. Oh, they did?
Yes,
awesome.
They were
Shout
amazing.
Out to those guys. Awesome.
Yes.
Super cool.
So thank you for that. And thank you for your hospitality. Like using your Studio A room was great.
I got you.
And yeah, man, let's keep in touch more, because this was a great conversation. We don't get to talk often, but this was awesome.
It really was great, man. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
All right. So this has been the 1,000 Mile Podcast. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. When are you going to start yours?